Okay, so today we're going to talk about geometric mean, which is what we talked about yesterday, except now instead of just having the short leg and the long leg, we're also going to have the hypotenuse. So let's look just at a couple similar triangles, and we want to find x here. So on this triangle, we have the hypotenuse and we have the short leg. And on this triangle, we have the hypotenuse and the short leg. So here I'm going to do the short over the hypotenuse, or x over 12, is equal to, and over here we want to do short over hypotenuse, so 2 over 8. So then if we solve that proportion, we have 24 equals 8x, divide by 8, so x equals 3. On the second one, they don't give us an x, so let's call this long leg x. So we have a long leg and a short leg. We have a long leg and a short leg. So I'm going to do short over long. So on this first triangle, we have 3 over x is equal to, over here I want to do the short first, 4 over 10. So if we multiply that, we get 30 equals 4x. Divide by 4, so x equals 7.5. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is find altitude, and there's going to be 3 different examples. Okay, so there's 3 different examples here, and you can see that we're going to find x here in the middle. On the second one, we're going to find this y, and on the third one, we're going to find z. So yesterday, we just found x, and we did geometric mean for that. So here's the small triangle. We have A, B, D. So we split that up for you so you can see what that looks like. So I have this 5, and I have the x here. Then we have this medium triangle. So we have it broken up here. There's x, and there's the 9. So what we did yesterday is we said 5 over x is equal to x over 9. So we did short over long is equal to short over long. So if we solve that, x squared equals 45 square root. So x equals square root of 45. And 45 is 5 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. So there's a pair of 3's. So x equals 3 times the square root of 5. Okay, so now on this second one, you have to look carefully at the triangles. This first one is A to C. So you see here that big triangle, that bottom part is A to C, so that's this one. So they tell us AC is 12. Okay, so make sure you see that number right there. And then from here, B to C, put B there, we have Y. So we have the hypotenuse and we have the long leg. Then on this second triangle, I'll use green. I have D to C is 8. They gave us that, 8, and then they gave us the Y. Now on this one, this is the hypotenuse, and this is the leg. So if we set it up hypotenuse over leg, or leg over hypotenuse, we'll do 12 over Y is equal to, and over here I want to do the hypotenuse first, Y over 8. So you see this proportion is similar to this one where I have the Y's across from each other. So if we solve that, we get Y squared equals 96 square root. So Y equals square root of 96, and let's break that down. It breaks up into 16 times 6. So this one is 4 times 4 and 2 times 3. So I have a pair of 4s. So y equals 4 square root of 6. The 6 comes from this 2 and 3 that don't have pairs. So now we solved for y. So now let's find the third side, z. So again, the triangles are broken up for you. So here's this small triangle. So let's write what we know. We know this is 2 and this is z. And then they gave you the big triangle, ABC. So I'll do that in purple. So there's ABC. So if I add the 2 and the 7, then this whole side is 9. And this side AB is z. So let's look at what we have on the small triangle. We have short and we have the hypotenuse. And over here we have short and we have the hypotenuse. So if we do short over hypotenuse for our proportion, on the small triangle I'm going to do 2 over z is equal to, and then over here I want to do small over hypotenuse, z over 9. So if we cross multiply, z squared equals 18 square root, z equals square root 18, and we can break that up. So 18 is 2 times 9, 9 is 3 times 3. So we have a pair of 3's. So z equals 3 times the square root of 2. So this one, of course, we took each triangle and broke it up. So now let's look at one where we're not going to break it up for you. So on number 1, you're finding 3 things. We're going to find x, y, and z. So the one that you probably want to start with is this middle one, z, and use the geometric mean like we used yesterday. So if we do geometric mean like we did yesterday, we took, let's write out what we have here. So in this small orange triangle, I have the small side, I have the long side, and I have the hypotenuse. Then if I take this medium-sized triangle, I have the small side is z, the long side is the 9, and the hypotenuse is the y. And then if we take the whole triangle that I outlined in purple, I've got from here to here is the hypotenuse. This side over here is the small, and this side is the long. So you can see it can get kind of confusing with all your small sides, your long sides, and your hypotenuse. Okay, so let's start with just the z. So I'm going to do small over the long, or short over long. So I have this short side in orange, so I have 3 over the long side in orange is z. So I'm just doing this right here. 3 over z is equal to, now I'm going to go to the green triangle, and I'm going to do the short side, which is z, over the long side, which is 9. So let's go ahead and solve for z. If we cross multiply, we get z squared equals 27 square root. Z equals, and if we break up 27 into 3 times 9, 9 is 3 times 3, there's a pair of 3's. So z is equal to 3 square root of 3. So right here I'm going to write 3 square root 3. It's kind of hard to see, but that's, now we know this side right here. Okay, so we use the short side over the long side. So now I'm going to try to find x, which is over here. So since x is on this hypotenuse and this short side, that's the proportion I'm going to use. So I'm going to use the small side and the hypotenuse. And I'm going to start with the orange triangle. So I have the short side on the orange triangle is 3. And the hypotenuse on the orange triangle is x. And that is going to be equal to, now I want, if I look at this purple one, that's the short side. So I'm now going to take the short side of the big triangle, my purple triangle, over the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is here in purple, so I have to do 3 plus 9, which is 12. So if you need to, have the video pause so you can see where those numbers are coming from. So let's multiply this out. So we have x squared equals 36 square root. So x equals 6 because 36 is a perfect square. So now we know this side is 36. Okay, now if you look at what we've done, we used the short side and the long side. We used the short side and the hypotenuse. So the one we haven't used is the long side and the hypotenuse. So let me box those so you can see. Okay, so now I want just the long side and the hypotenuse. So we're trying to find y here. So I'm going to use the long side of the purple triangle, which is the y, over the hypotenuse of the purple triangle, which is 12. We just found that on the second proportion we did. So this is from the purple triangle. And that's going to be equal to, I want the long side of the green triangle, which is 9, over the hypotenuse of the green triangle, which is hard to see, but it's right here, and that's a y. So I still use the long side and the hypotenuse from both of those triangles. And if we cross multiply, we get y squared equals 108 square root. So y equals square root of 108. We can break that down into 3 times 36. So I have a pair of 6s. Oops, sorry. So I have a pair of 6s, so y is equal to 6 times the square root of 3. Now that's a lot of work where you have to do all 3 proportions. So I'm going to show you on number 2 a way that might be a little bit easier for you and maybe not as difficult. Okay, so number 1, this is the way you can do it with the different proportions. If you choose to do small over large, then you do small over hypotenuse and large over hypotenuse, or long. So on number 2, the first thing we're going to do is, if you were to look at it this way, you can do the same thing with the geometric mean, where we could do long over short equals long over short. Okay, so let's do that. Let's find x first. I'm going to flip it back around. So if you could flip it, and we did the same proportion as we did on number 1, I could do long, so I'm taking the 5 over x, the short. So there's the long side and there's the short side. And that's equal to the long side of this one, which is x, over the short side of this one, which is 2. So if I cross multiply and solve, I get x squared equals 10 square root. So x equals the square root of 10. So if we know x is equal to the square root of 10, I could use Pythagorean theorem to solve this triangle now. So this triangle right here, I'll outline it in orange. And if I was to redraw that, like that, we just found that x, which was this side, is square root of 10. And this side here is 2. And we want to figure out, well, what is y? So I could do Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'll put in 2 squared plus square root 10 squared equals y squared. So this is another option for you if you don't like that method we did on number 1. So 2 squared is 4 plus, when you square a square root, it goes away. So this is just going to be a 10 equals y squared. 14 equals y squared. Square root. And we find out that y is the square root of 14. And that doesn't simplify. You could try to simplify it, but there's no pairs when you do your factor tree. Okay, so now let's do this one. If we were to write out this triangle, so I'll write it up here at the top. So here's our right angle. We know this side is 5, this side is z, and this side is x, which we know is square root 10. So if we fill in our Pythagorean theorem, we'll put 5 in for a, so 5 squared plus square root 10 squared equals z squared. So this is going to be 25 plus 10 equals z squared. This should be 35 equals z squared. Square root, square root. So z equals the square root of 35, which doesn't break down because it just breaks down to 5 and 7. So that method might be a little bit faster for you than what we did on number 1, but it's completely up to you, whichever one you like. So let's look at number 3. Let's do number 3 together. So I'm going to do it the same way I did the first one. I'm going to do the geometric mean first. So I'm going to take these 3 numbers and find x. So when we did geometric mean, if I was doing this one right here, I would do 2 over 2 is equal to 2 over x. Now that's kind of tricky because the 2's are the same. So this 2 is this 2. And then this 2 in the middle that I underlined in purple, that's these 2's. Okay, so just like we did up above, this is a over the middle equals the middle over the b. So if I cross multiply, I get 4 equals 2x. Divide by 2, so x equals 2. So that's nice and simple for us. Okay, so now let's find one of our other sides. So we know this side is also 2. So let's go and find y next. So I'm going to do Pythagorean Theorem because I think it's a little bit quicker. So both of our sides on this triangle are both 2's. So this is going to be 2 squared plus 2 squared equals c squared. Oh, we'll call that y. That's what we're finding. So 4 plus 4 equals y squared. 8 equals y squared. Make sure you square root. So y equals the square root of 8, and we want to simplify that. 8 is 2 times 4. 4 is 2 times 2. So there's a pair of 2's, and then we have a square root of 2. So there's y. So let's go ahead and find z then. I'm going to do it the exact same way. I'm going to do Pythagorean Theorem. So the 2 sides are both 2. 2 squared plus 2 squared equals z squared. Now hopefully you can see that these are exactly the same thing. 2 squared plus 2 squared equals z squared. So it should be the same answer. 4 plus 4 equals z squared. 8 equals z squared. Square root. Z equals the square root of 8, which we just simplified right here. So z equals 2 square root 2. Okay, so I'm not going to do the last 2 with you, but what I want you to do is on the homework worksheet, I want you to make sure you attempt all 5 of the problems. The first 2 are similar to what we did already, and the other 3 I think you'll be able to at least start. So you should be able to attempt all 5 homework problems. We'll go over that on Wednesday, and then we'll go over the review for the test that's on Thursday.